Hey, everybody, welcome to the Mosaic podcast. I am so happy to be back in this room. I've been spending all my time in another room. It's the same room, but we just call it by another name. It's the same Zoom room, but we're doing a different thing in this room now at this point in time, which is we're going into the life of people and taking a look at those moments in time where life changed for them. You know, so often in life, what happens is we think our life is going to be exactly what it is today. And where we are today, we think is where we're always going to be. And then yet, oftentimes in life, something just happens. And it's as if a door or a portal or an opportunity opens up for us, where suddenly we have an opportunity to be something entirely different. And if we're courageous enough to walk through that door, amazing things can happen. Sometimes they're painful, sometimes they're glorious, but different things will happen. And for this moment, I want you as the guest in this room to be a fly on the wall and to experience a conversation that I think is going to be beautiful just from the few minutes we've already had in the green room. The woman in this room with me, her name is Padma Gordon. I felt her before she even entered. And when she entered, the feeling just got stronger. And there's something just beautiful about when a person carries a presence. We all do. But sometimes that presence is calming and uplifting. And sometimes that presence is depressing and painful. And so what do we do when we encounter different presences? And how do we walk into a room and rather than be completely affected by the room, bring our presence into the room and affect the room? That's what I'm hoping we'll talk about a little bit today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Padma because it's what I have to do. I want you to know who you're sitting with. But you know me, anybody who's listened to the show knows me. I'm not a big biography person because all that you can find out on the social media links and the website that we're going to have here for you. And I'm going to highly encourage you with this person to check out all of those links and see what she does. But for now, let me just give you a brief one paragraph description. Padma Gordon is a spiritual guide, embodied mindfulness counselor, author and lover of life who invites people to deepen their connection to body, heart, and soul. She teaches about relationships through the lens of awakening. Her new book, which I'm going to want you to go out and get, is called Being Together, Practical Wisdom for Loving Yourself and Your Partner. Tell me right now, before you even hear another word, is there anybody listening that couldn't benefit from that if it delivers on its subtitle? Practical Wisdom for Loving Yourself and Your Partner. I don't know anybody who can't. I'm going to list all of her social media links. She has Facebook, she has LinkedIn, she has Instagram, she has a website. We don't have to worry about copying those right now. They're all in the show notes. I want you to check them out. I want you to get to know her. And so often I just ask this question to people when they come on the show, that if you could say one thing to the world and you knew they were listening, what is it you would choose to say? I want you to hear what Padma said. And it's almost like if we were to end the show right there, it would be worthwhile. I want you to hear what she said. I would say to people, be present. Every moment is sacred, including the less preferable ones. I'm going to repeat that for a minute. Every moment is sacred, including the less preferable ones. Life is a celebration. Be a devotee of love and loving. Life is short. Know that you are enough and trust that you are loved. If you have to go and you need to hear only that, hear only that. But we have, so to speak, the horse's mouth right in front of us that said that. Why not sit and enjoy and listen to the rest of it? Padma, what an honor to have you here with me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving us your time. How are you doing today?
Um, I'm doing really well. I feel so honored and grateful to be sitting here in this room with you and with everyone who's listening and gonna watch and gonna listen, because it's really, it is. I meant what I said. We're in a precious time. I mean, this right now is precious time. It's rarefied to get to have these real, heart-based, unencumbered conversations. And I'll just say that, Daniel, your invitation, and when we were chatting in the green room, um, made me just feel so welcome, the space of acceptance. So I feel like that's the space of love and acceptance is where this conversation is occurring and where it's emerging from and returning to. So I'm very happy to be here.
It's my honor, and thank you so much for saying that and recognizing that. And what I told Padma in the green room is sort of what I've learned in the other show that I do, 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers, which is now Conversations with Strangers because there's hundreds and hundreds of them. That I realize that all people want, everybody, no matter what color their skin, no matter what religion they practice, no matter how much money they have, no matter what border they live behind, all of us want to be loved and accepted, listened to and heard, and acknowledged and validated for who we are. And I realized I didn't need a college degree or a diploma, nor do you. You don't need to be ordained in a ministry, nor do I. To do that, all we need to do is take the time to just hold the space to love and adore somebody and see what happens. Mm-hmm. So with that, we welcome you as guests into this room and know the same thing that I'm doing for Padma, she's doing for me, and we're doing for you in this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get a sense of how life started for you. What your parents do?
My parents are very accomplished, type A New Yorkers. My father practiced medicine for 50 years, and my mother was a lawyer for nearly that long.
Wow.
Yeah.
And were you one of many children, one of a couple children, the only child?
I was the first of three. I am the first of three.
Okay. And with parents that are that accomplished and that busy, was there time in their day for you? Did you grow up knowing them, loving them, feeling, or was their job busy, and that you would get to see them when you would get to see them, and you knew they loved you? And like, what was that like? I don't want to put words in your mouth or stories in your head. What was that like?
That's a great question. I always knew that I was loved, and they were around. I mean, we ate dinner at 8:30 or 9 at night.
Wow.
I had my grandparents, both sets of grandparents, and then one of them moved. Where they moved from New York, they moved to Florida. But the other set of grandparents lived there for my whole life until they were gone. So they were around a lot, and we always had, we were taken care of, and I definitely felt loved. I definitely felt loved. I mean, I was the first child. My parents had me when they were really young. It was that generation. My mother was 23. Wow. They were very intense. They hadn't at that point done, really much personal work. Yeah. So I came into that.
Yeah. So from that setting, how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was just talking about this with somebody earlier, because I felt like it was a little bit like I was a stranger in a strange land. Like on the one hand, I could relate because my father was a total jock. Exercise was a big priority, relative health and maintaining a fit body was a high priority. So I was on board with that. But when it came to kind of really feeling completely seen and understood, that wasn't there. So there was something, and even though I did feel loved, like parents give what they have to give. Yeah. And then what they don't have to give, if you're lucky, you get it from someone else who's in your inner circle, your immediate family, someone you're connect to, or you look inside,
I love that.
or both.
Yeah. I have this might come across long, but I'd be interested in your feedback on this.
Sure.
Having talked to thousands and thousands of people, what I realized is that love has such a different meaning for so many different people. And we all so much want to be loved and adored by our parents and loved by our parents, that sometimes our definition of what love is the way our parents loved us, because we know they loved us, but sometimes they loved us from a distance. Sometimes they loved us by their non-involvement in our life. And we end up mirroring that love because that's what love is for us. Do you find any of that to be true?
I would say that is true. In my work with people, I definitely see that. And that's how we come to our understanding of love. I see that a lot, is that, oh, well, love is you buy me presents. So that's what love is. Yeah. So, material things then represent love. Or for some people, and this is very common, love is food. So if you don't offer me some of what you're eating, or if I ask you for a bite of your ice cream cone and you don't give it to me, that means you don't love me.
Now, I'm not sure if that's true outside of a Jewish household. No, we're both
probably
Jewish.
True in Italian as well, but that would never happen in an Italian home. I lived in Italy.
Yeah. And Indian homes are the same way, and Mexican homes are the same way, and so I'm teasing you a little bit, but I'm sorry. So if you don't offer me food, then I don't feel loved. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, if you withhold, it's like that's a withholding of love. Withholding of food then represents a withholding of love. Yeah. For instance, Yeah. And then there's a deeper understanding of love, right? There's like a deeper understanding of love that is prior to, that is our nature, that is something that doesn't come and go, that isn't subject to your mood, or whether you smiled at me or didn't smile at me, or hugged me the way I wanted you to hug me, or said the right thing or didn't say the right thing. And so I feel like that's what I kind of went looking for through my own explorations.
I love that, and it's so vivid for me. And it feels, as you say it, I can feel how real it is in your essence. And what I'd love to do, if possible, is dive into that pivot moment where love was this one thing for you at one point. Maybe it never was, but it would seem like that's what it was. To that point where you realized, that there's something more than this type of love, that there's something inside me, or there's something, whatever it is that you felt that is, because I bet there's so many people listening right now that are living that other love, that first love, that like, I feel love when you love me the way I want you to love me. I know I had a conversation with my brother who's really close to me, and we've been really close, but we've grown apart in the past few years. And we try and have the conversations, and we just somehow we end up, getting at each other because of sibling stuff. And I realized one day I went up to him and I said, here's my problem, I think. I want you to love me the way I want you to love me. And I'm not able to accept the love that you give me. I know you love me. I need to learn that the way you love me is the way you love me. And I want you to love me the way you love me. And he said, in all honesty, that's how I am too. And when we could pull that together to say, we know we love each other. God, we love each other more than just about anybody, because we went through a lot of tragedy together. We went through a lot of good things together. That we then don't question that love anymore. And we just accept, this is the way you love me, and I love you for loving me the way you love me. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, that's a lot what happens in relationships. And I will get back to your question of the pivotal moment. But in relationships, that's exactly what happens. I want you to love me the way I want you to love me, rather than I'm just you said the word acceptance. Yeah. I'm going to accept, I'm going to receive what you are giving me. This is one of the fundamental things in relating with any human, you know, whether, if you want to be close to somebody, receive what they're giving you, recognize what's being given, and don't look for the rest, which actually, as time has gone by, that's what I've come to. And that's what I know to be true, say, with your parents. If your parents are still alive, then they're just going to give you what they can give you.
Yeah.
And to expect something else, to expect what comes from another source is unrealistic. And you're gonna suffer. You're gonna feel bad. You're gonna feel mad. You're gonna start getting into it. You're gonna project, you know. And so I feel like acceptance is one of the primary tenets of loving, is to be accepting, starting with who? Yourself.
So how did that happen for you? Like, how did that shift happen?
You know, I feel like from when I was young, well, first of all, I always danced. I love to dance. Dance for me is how my soul expresses. It's how it breathes. And yeah, it's communion. It's profound communion with the universe, with love, with the divine. So there's dancing, and then there's this feeling of, as a teenager, I was really frustrated, as many teenagers are, with their parents, with their world, with the sort of in-betweenness of it. And so I started reading. I stumbled upon a copy of Be Here Now, Ram Dass, you know, when I was like 15. And from there, just got into meditation, and early back in my teenage years, you know, doing some psychedelics and just music. And it just took me on a journey. Like, I just went in because there was something that I wasn't getting. And when I wasn't getting it, it was being expressed as anger, as frustration, which wasn't really getting me anywhere. And it feels like, you know, when you knock and you knock and you knock, you're knocking on the wrong door. It's not going to open. And if it does open, it's going to fall flat. You're not going to get what you were looking for. So I had to actually, the pivot was pivoting from looking out and wanting something from out there and trying to make myself into something, someone. I was raised from 12 years old in a small town in Long Island. So it was, people looked a certain way and acted a certain way. And I just really never fit in to that. I tried until I gave up. And then I realized that I wasn't going to find it outside. I wasn't going to get it from my parents. I wasn't going to get it from anyone. So I went in. So I feel like I had the grace of feeling frustrated, feeling like always knowing there was something more. Like my soul had been wanting that actually from when I came in.
Yeah.
I didn't really get it. And so there was this frustrated part that just something had to happen. And what had to happen was a return, a turning in, a turning toward.
Yeah. I want to just ask the listener if it's starting to make a little more sense, the words that Padma would say if she knew you were listening. And I just want to repeat one of the sentences that she said that I paused on when she said it. Every moment is sacred, even the less preferable ones. Because imagine if that wasn't a sacred moment, where she didn't see her frustration as something that would open up a door for her. That how beautiful something that seems so terrible in the moment might be. Like, we're just so upset, so frustrated, so angry, so divided. And then suddenly it becomes a portal for us to go through, or a doorway for us to go through to something that is what we've longed for our whole life. I wonder if that's not what's happening in the world today, with all the anguish that's going on, all the frustration, all the disagreement. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I feel like we're in a time of profound transformation. And I don't know how long it's going to take. And I feel like there is there's a tempering that's going on.
Yeah.
And obviously, as we see with what's happening with this pandemic and all the other things going on in the world, people are dying. People are leaving. And even before this, it feels like there have been, and of course, most recently with RBG, really great souls leaving.
Yeah.
In numbers. So I feel like this time is a time that you'll either leave and fold in and collapse and it'll just be too much, or something you will rise up. We will rise up collectively to even, I feel like, a next level of consciousness, a next level of being able to engage that is really, in some ways, unencumbered, unfettered. That's where we're headed. Now, the journey there, I can't really say what that's going to be. I don't imagine it's going to. I think it's going to require a lot of staying power, and I feel like the most important thing we can do right now is be able to line up with our hearts and line up with love, because that is where the greatest discernment comes from, and that is where the responsibility, the ability to respond, comes from there. And this is asking us to respond.
Love it. So as the listener in this conversation, what are you feeling now? Are you able to see some of the frustrations you have? Are you able to sit with those and not just pan them away? Are you able to see that every moment is sacred, including the less preferable ones? Are you able to allow this world to speak to us? Like, one of the big things I'm working on right now is creating a revolution of listening. Because everything in the world is speaking. We're speaking to ourselves and we don't hear ourselves. The environment is speaking to us. The earth itself is speaking to us. We don't hear it. Our work is speaking to us. We don't hear it. Our friends are speaking to us. And I don't mean to make it black and white. You see, my book is black and white. I'm black and white. I don't want to make a black and white reality, but I want to see it on a gradient there.
Yes.
I don't know why, but as you were speaking, a reference to my days in the yeshiva came up. I was one day away from being ordained a rabbi in an Orthodox, very, very Orthodox yeshiva in Jerusalem. And as you were speaking, the image of Moses came to me, of how you were talking about some of people are just passing now, and their job is done here, and that we have a chance to go and carry it further. Well, Moses, when he led the slaves, the Jews who were slaves in Egypt, out of Egypt, he never made it to the Holy Land. He led them, and it took him 40. It took 40 years in the desert, wandering through that desert, not knowing how long it was going to be. And he didn't make it, but the tribe made it. And so there was no shame. No one would look at Moses and say, you didn't live up to what you were doing. So there's no blame on whether you go or stay right now.
That's right.
Right? But just what is your place here in all this? And as you're in this, going through, these are historical times. These are times that will be looked back in the course of history and examined. What will your children's children's children say of your place in this world? And how are you living to make that place a place that you're proud of or happy with or ashamed of or embarrassed by? All of which you're all okay. It doesn't matter as long as you are okay with what you're okay with. Thoughts?
Such a beautiful, beautiful inquiry. Yeah, I feel like that's the most important thing, is how are you living? How am I living? And I feel like it's really time And I was writing about this and riffing on this for a while, and it's still alive. It cycles back through in its various ways. But it's like cultivating, as you're saying, the ability to listen, the ability to respond, and also the ability to just go for it.
Yeah.
Put yourself out. Do what it is that is there for you to do. I love this 50 conversations that's become 500 conversations and on and on. You know, this is obviously coming from inspiration.
Yeah.
And so that's what I feel like is to live through, to be propelled by inspiration and to give ourselves permission to actually show up and to be ourselves, to be open. And it's really, it's tricky right now because we're walking around in masks and there's this whole isolation thing and on everything that's going on. It's really takes a lot of determination to be open and to continue to relate with openness.
Yeah.
Continue to listen and to practice and to just step up. I feel like that's what I'm doing. I mean, my life's about love. My life's about creating harmony and being a catalyst and a contributor to what I can call coherence, alignment, peace, that there's peace. So if I find myself in I have a 14-year-old daughter, just turned 14, who is a force.
Of course.
Yes, I'm her mother. She's definitely she matches me. She meets me.
Yes.
And yeah, there's nothing like a teenager to really make you just like, you know, so if I'm getting into it with her, that's not coherent. It's not helpful. She can only do what she can do. And that actually goes for everybody as well as us, but everybody can only do what they can do. So to be compassionate, to be patient, to actually practice generosity, giving people the benefit of the doubt and just figuring, you know, they're doing their best. And if you see, like, and I want this from others too, if you see that someone's slacking off, like, you might give them a little feedback, like, hey, you could take it up a notch, you know, just in a gentle way, because you want the best for them. And it's easy to collapse or to schlump.
Yeah.
So inviting each other to come out and be, you know, give ourselves to life.
I love that. So as a listener, take a moment and pause. How do you invite the people in your life to come out and live life? How do you give them the opportunity to not be scared to step into the place they've got to go into? Do you do that by telling them they should? Do you do that by holding the space for them that if they fall, you're right there for them? How do you do that? And Padma spoke about having a 14-year-old, and I have the honor and privilege of having a 31-year-old developmentally delayed daughter. And so she's been my greatest teacher, and I'm remarried now because my wife passed away. And my wife now has, when we've been together 7 years, so her son is now 18 and her daughter's 16. So 7 minus that is when they came to me, and I thought I was done with all that. And those years are crazy years. You know, these teenage years, I remember saying to my friends, you just gotta slither through them. Just, you know, just do your best. Hold on. Like 17's coming, 18's coming. It's going to get better. Right?
Oh gosh.
And just, you know, these aren't the times to win major wars. These are times just not to lose the whole war. And so anybody who has a teenager, I think, knows what we're talking about, except for those of you who have these blessed angels who come and have never caused a day of pain in your life, but probably not. Padma, before we get too far in, because I already feel like so much the desire for people to know, really, what do you do in the world and who are you? Because your knowledge is coming through and showing us who you are, and your heart is coming through and showing us who you are. But tell people who are listening a little more than what I introduced you to in the Bible. What's important to you, and what are you doing here?
Thank you. Well, also, and thank you for inviting a pause.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things. It's one of my top practices that I offer to people I work with is pausing. Pausing is a chance to reset, to take a breath, to sit back, to interrupt whatever programmed response might be running. And just before I forget, well, I'll bring me back. Let's bookmark your question, your prior question, because I'll just say, I hold the space. That's what I do in order to invite people into their next level of being themselves, trusting themselves, loving themselves. I hold the space. You can't should somebody into evolution. It just won't work.
There are a lot of people trying, right?
Yeah, for sure. And should is a bedfellow with judgment.
Yeah.
So we don't want to, that's, we all have judgments and we can have them, but we don't have to speak them.
Yeah.
No, it's not, doesn't serve. And just notice what it is I'm judging. What am I judging? Because if I'm judging it over there, I'm probably judging it over here too. So what do? I work with people as a counselor, spiritual counselor, and I work with couples and individuals. And I often have said I journey through people's hearts and souls with them. And then all the layers that are maybe running interference or bringing static between to their experience of loving themselves and accepting themselves and being able to thrive. Because when you love yourself and you feel good about yourself, you're much more willing to take a risk, to put yourself out there, to write a book, to sing a song, to do whatever it is that is yours to do, is yours to offer. So I work with people, and I work with people through mindful conversations and practices of inquiry and listening through the body and getting to know what is it to really be present. And then also creating, co-creating practices and structures that'll support you to do that. Because one thing I know is practice is essential.
Yeah.
And what we practice is who we become.
Yeah. It's really interesting in the hundreds of conversations that I've had in the 50 conversation room. No one's ever asked me if they could lead the conversation until a few days ago. And I had a really connected conversation with a woman there, and she said, something, would you let me do what you do and you come into the room as a stranger to me? I said, of course, that would be fabulous. And one of the questions she asked me is, what's the most important thing to you? And it brought it up for me because when you said establishing the practice, because my practice has been the most important thing to me. And that practice has been that in 45 years, I haven't missed a day of meditation. The length of time that I meditate is different. When I was in the monastery for 10 years, I would meditate 18 hours a day, sometimes, 12 hours, never less than 10 hours a day for 10 years.
Beautiful.
Now I don't meditate 10 or 12 or 18 hours a day most days or any days, or even maybe, I don't know if I've done it a day in the last 5 years. But I make sure I don't miss 12 seconds or 15 seconds or 10 minutes or an hour, whatever it takes to just reconnect to the connection. And that practice has given me the ability to move into the world in a different way than I have, even practicing the practice for 20 years. Practicing it now 45 years, I see something, even a rock with a drop of water falling on it will eventually wear a hole into the Right.
Yes.
Into the rock. And so that's what I feel like. Like, I don't feel like
Yeah.
there's anything great in me. I think it's the practice that I've done that's made that drop just continue to fall religiously.
Mm. Yeah. That's beautifully put.
So when you do the practice with people that you do, when people engage you, what makes the work you do a spiritual counselor versus a counselor? Because a
Mm.
lot of the inquisitive questions you ask is what a counselor would ask. But I have a sense that there's something more that you do than just ask great questions and open up mindfulness for people. Is there
Mm.
something else that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I was working with someone, a lovely man that I've been working with for a number of years. And really, I would say it's about presence. I it's about holding the space and offering a space of presence, which then invites people in to themselves to rest so deeply, deeper than any knowing, deeper than any thought, any judgment, any inner critic, all of that. And so it's actually, it's the name of my book. I'm also an author. It's the practice of being. It's
Yeah.
practice, and the name of the book is Being Together. So that's really what my life is given to, because in these moments, even just really this moment that we're sharing here,
Yeah.
is just, it's so amplifies and enriches what is, just because we're present here
Yeah.
together. And so that's what I'm offering. And because in a traditional therapy, and I do have plenty of involved in conversations, inquiry, you can figure a lot of things out, but then underneath the figuring out is a certain kind of understanding, a certain kind of realization, recognition. And that's really what makes me excited. And people, by the time people come to me, they've done a lot of talking with other amazing counselors, therapists,
Yeah.
psychologists, psychiatrists, what have you. And I also really, through my love of movement, I also lead mindful movement classes, is really tapping into the body and how to listen, how to, that's another listening, is listening to the body.
Love it. Yeah. For those of you who are listening, are you hearing? And for those of you who have listened to my other shows, do you feel sort of something merging here that is beautiful? Let me tell you what I'm experiencing here.
Please.
Most often, I am the person in the room that holds the space for someone else to just be loved and accepted and listened to and heard and acknowledged and validated. And one of the most beautiful things I find in that process is that when people feel that, everything they're not falls away, and what they are just emerges. And sometimes they see themselves for the first time in this room, and it doesn't take very long. The conversations are only an hour long. Sometimes it just happens that quickly. It's very rare that I meet a person who does what I would say, I'm sure there are differences in what we do, but for lack of an analysis of that, who cares? who does almost the same thing that I do. And can you feel in this room how much Padma is holding the space in the way I'm holding the space for her, for me? And can you feel how the space is just cleared? In the space where two people hold the space to be loved and accepted and listened to and heard and acknowledged and validated, that's when I think miracles happen. And so what I'd like to do is invite you as the listener to listen beyond the words that are being said. What I say to people when I speak to them is my words are great, and people have told me I speak well. and my voice is nice, and all that is great, but I could care less. Because I mean, I don't mean that as cavalier as it sounds. The job of my voice and the job of my mind is to do exactly what it does, is to occupy the mind of the people that I'm speaking to, because the mind's where fear lives.
Mm-hmm.
When your mind is occupied, and my mind is occupied with your mind, then what becomes possible is our hearts can connect without the fear of what's going on here, what just happened, why is he doing that? And our spirits can connect without the hesitancy of the mind breaking in, because the mind's completely occupied. You know, my movement isn't occupy Broad Street or New York or San Francisco or whatever. Mine is occupy mind. Mm. And allowing, when we occupy the mind, everything else can happen. I wonder if that you do something similar as well.
Mm. Yes. Yes. You know, and you said something about, you know, it's not about my voice and it's not about the words that I'm speaking, because I also lead guided meditations, and I have trained in hypnosis and NLP, and I have a number of meditations up on the wonderful app Insight Timer, and it's really not about the words. And I will often say, listen to the spaces between my words, because that's where you can rest. Because if the mind, as you say, if the mind is busy going, well, what does that mean? I don't know. And do I relate to that? Maybe I agree with that. Maybe I don't agree with that. It's like you're not present. That's just going around in circles, which we all do. We all can do. But it's when we can actually just rest into the spaciousness, then something else opens, as you said. And I almost feel like, Daniel, what is happening is we're like passing it back and forth, but it's kind of like when you're dancing. It's a dance.
Yeah.
And when you're dancing, and I'll do this exercise or, you know, game with people sometimes. Okay, now you lead. Okay, now I lead. Now you lead. And then all of a sudden, who's leading and who's following?
Yeah.
And then there's just the dialogue, the heart dialoguing with itself, love dialoguing with itself without knowing.
Yeah.
Without knowing. And the only way that's possible is through this listening. And I almost want to define, you know, for everyone who's listening doesn't just mean with your ears. It means with your body, with your heart, with your whole awareness. It's almost, I'll often say something like, just like widen, you know, you widen out your awareness so that you're listening with all of you. And then this kind of divine intelligence, it can just come through.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you talk about the space between the words, because when I wrote the Mosaic, it told me the words are not what's important. It's the space between the words that people have to feel. And I say that to them, when you read it with the thought of understanding the space between the words. And I also like what you just said about listening, because if I can share a short story with you.
Please. When
I was given this, like I felt I was given this new role in life, to be someone who listens to people, because I'm a talker. You can see I talk a lot, and I talk and I talk and I talk. and when my beloved gave me this commission to say, I want you to bring a revolution of listening into the world, I looked at her and I said, are you like crazy? Like, are you that low on the totem pole that you came to me? I mean, I look how much I talk. I need to learn how to listen. And she said, of course you do. But the beauty of when you speak is that you do occupy the mind of people. And you are listening to their heart and soul. And because you're listening to their heart and soul, you can speak to their mind in a way that will touch their heart and soul.
Yes.
So you actually are a better listener than you think. And we're not that low down on the totem pole.
No. Not low down on the totem pole.
Well,
You've been at it a while.
yeah. But it's really an interesting point, because I myself, when it came to me, said, "Oh my God, you got to be kidding! You're choosing me to introduce this concept or bring it to people. There got to be better people than me. I mean, not that I wasn't, not that it didn't come from a place of I'm not good enough. It came from a place of like, this is so important, and I don't do this, So I love that you called to people's hearts and souls to listen with everything.
Yes.
Can we talk about the space between the words a little?
Sure. And I just want to say, you got this assignment, this commission, because it was yours to bring through, not because you had already mastered it, but because it was your chance.
It was my chance to learn it.
That's right.
100,000%. When I was at Hay House, one of the things I noticed is that most people wrote the book they most needed to read, not the book they knew.
Absolutely.
And that certainly was the case with me with the Mosaic. It wasn't what I knew.
Me too.
But, yeah.
Yep.
And so,
right.
Of course, we're given things that we most need to learn rather than because we're great at it.
Yeah. Space between the words.
Yeah. Tell me what you experience in the space between the words.
It's interesting. I mean, as you say it, my eyes want to close, because in the space between the words, well, there's silence, right? There's auditory silence, and then there's the palpable silent pulse of life.
I love that.
Yeah, and the space between the words is where it's kind of where the real goodness lies. It's where it lives. It's where the goodies are. It's like don't just leave with. I don't know. Can I tell a little story?
Of course.
Okay. There's a story. Let's see, which culture does it come from? Today it comes from Mother India. And so there was a Maharaj, and he had a realization, and he just felt like, wow, I've been living and coveting all these riches, and he really had come home to the deepest love, and he was overjoyed. He was living with so much gratitude and so much joy. So he sent out a message with his scribe, all the people of the land, come, I'm going to have a big gathering, and I'm going to share all my wealth. I'm going to share all my riches with everyone here. This could be a hint to the people who are coveting the wealth. Just saying. And so the people came, and they were so excited. And they came, but these are peasants, and this is the palace. And so they were welcomed into the royal baths, and the separated out for privacy. And they got bathed in with the beautiful soaps and perfumes and everything, and with softest towels, softer than they could ever fathom. And so some of the people, they thought, wow, this is it. This is the good stuff. It smells amazing. It's like mango and jasmine and all these things. And so they just, they pocketed the soap, and they left. And the little sample perfume, they took it, right? And then, but some of them made it. And then the king said, well, come, let's dine. So they went in, and there was a banquet of like unimaginable delights, every kind of meat, every kind of vegetable, cooked to perfection with spices from many lands. And they ate, and they just, gorged themselves on goodness and wine and everything. Some of those people then said, oh, this is it. Wow, this is the real stuff. And so they stuck like, turkey legs in their pockets and just palms full of fruit, and they absconded. And then finally, the king said, come into the inner sanctuary, come into the inner sanctum and share my riches. He had brought everything. And then he opens the doors, and the scribe came in, and his attendants, he said, where? And he looked, he said, where is everybody? He said, Your Majesty, they went home.
Wow.
They left. They went home. Nobody stayed. Everybody thought this is it. So don't be one of those people who leaves and says, oh, I got this concept. Oh, Daniel wrote this great line, or Padma said something, and I'm going to take that and go. No, don't leave. Stay. Come into the inner sanctum, which is found. The deepest riches are found in silence, in my experience.
Love it. I love how, well, let me pause for a minute. Listener, as you listen, listener, as you hear, can you hear the silence between the words? As Padma tells that story. And what do you hear in the silence between the words? If I may, I'd love to share with you a story. Something that's very current in my life right now. It's not a story, it's a real story. It's real lifetime.
Please.
And I'm a little bit hesitant to talk about it because it's peculiar in a way. But I gave up worrying what people think about me a long time ago.
Oh, good.
So I can share with, and people, if you think I'm crazy, you're right. And if you don't, you're brave, but you might be right too. In the process of listening in this room, what I've realized is I'm receiving more than I'm giving, and I'm giving more than I'm receiving, simultaneously at the same time. But I used to always give and give with not much capacity to receive. And in listening to people, it's like part of the process is I need to be able to receive them, right? And I need to be able to feel that. That was great. And then I understood that, and I felt what a blessing I've gotten. But what started to happen is I started to receive them from distances thousands of miles away, not in the room anymore. And I felt like I am this blessed by this energy that's coming through me that certainly isn't mine, that is unlimited and powerful. And I don't mean to sound guru-esque here, because I'm not guru-esque. All of us have it. But there's this energy that's coming through us that I just wanted to say to people, similar to your story, take it, this is yours. And I know take it sounds ungenerous and sounds like people will abuse you and use you. There was no way God could abuse God, because it's just ours to have. This isn't mine or yours. And so I've been saying to people lately, if something in me inspires you or you feel something, take it. Just don't take it as your own. Like, carry it with you and have it. It's yours. And don't worry, because like as much as you empty me, it will be refilled, because that's the law of nature. When we become empty, we get refilled. And we need to get refilled. I need to get refilled, because what I have now is nothing compared to what can be coming if you don't empty me. So this process of emptying me, and here's where it gets a little weird, and pardon me if I become, some weirdo here. Something's happening that people are feeling the energy in their chakras so much that their second chakra is becoming activated, which is, they understand it as sexuality, but it's creative. It's where our creative energies are. So people have forgotten what creativity is, because when they feel inspired in that chakra, they just naturally think, oh God, that's sexuality. That's what happens. That's the birthing process. And I'm shocked, because I have that isn't my intention, isn't to do that. My intention isn't to give people an orgasm. in the process of them coming here, but people are orgasming in the process of coming here.
Mm.
And it's both men and women, which is really strange. And so I'm sort of just sitting here in amazement that people would have such an intimate connection with someone they don't know, many of which I haven't ever spoken to or seen. They haven't even come into the room.
Mm.
But it's just available.
Mm-hmm.
And when you told the story of the king, it sort of sparked that in me. And I just wanted to get your sense of it, because I think you might be somebody who could understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I would love your instincts and your impressions and your guidance and your counsel or whatever it is that, without you, I'm not asking for you to give me a whole, session, right? But I just want to know.
Reflection.
Yeah, it's just a reflection on what you think.
Mm. Mm. Well, I think that, a certain, I think you are offering, it's like this space of, it's such openness. So it's so divine. It's so delightful that I think that people are not, unfortunately, many people are not used to that. They're not accustomed to it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it is, it can be, and I think to project sexuality onto it rather than just like this, it's the awakening, it's the coming alive. That's what I get, is that it's a certain coming alive. And I have to say, then when the energy, rises up through the chakras and into the heart and then all the way up, but it's like the opening of the chakras is orgasmic. Yeah. I mean, as you talked about an orgasm, I'm not really getting like totally sexual orgasm. Yeah. I would almost call it like a heartgasm or a soulgasm, Yeah. It's just like, that it's this, and I mean, I have had many of these, there are many names in spiritual traditions for these, but sometimes it can come with laughter, and sometimes it comes with tears, and sometimes it comes with both at the same time, this immense pleasure that is beyond the pleasure of the senses. Yeah. And it may also include the pleasure of the senses. Yeah. You know? So I feel like it's that, it's an awakening. Yeah. That's what I feel like. It's like something gets woken up, and then it's just tingling and totally alive. Yeah. So I think that's orgasmic, really. I mean, if you think about it, like having a sexual orgasm, a physical orgasm, that's what happens, right? It just enlivens your whole system. Everything's just tingling and alive, expanded.
I love your definition and your explanation and your insight, and I love how it ties into the story that we just said, because part of me now understands why I'm sharing that with you, because as you come to the table and are invited into this castle to take whatever it is you want, you can leave with the orgasm of the second chakra and you'll feel happy. Yeah. But why wouldn't you stay for the soulgasm or the heartgasm? Why wouldn't you just experience the whole? And I don't want to make people feel guilty for that, because it's beautiful. Like, what a beautiful moment that two people who don't know each other can connect somewhere on some place, who haven't ever seen each other. But it isn't this old decrepit body that you want to be in relationship with. There's an energy here that you feel, that it's not this personality. And that energy, you have the ability to give as well.
That's right.
And so if you experience it in any way, shape, or form, because I only know of the people who have had the courage to tell me. There may be other people who haven't, and there may be nobody else who has, or maybe they're even imagining it. Who knows what's going on? Like, I don't want to be more than I am in any way, shape, or form. But I do know this energy.
Yes.
I've felt it. And I believe other people are feeling it too. And I believe there's a moment now where the sensuality of creativity has to start to become known. Because if we use it, if we let go of it, then we don't have it to create in that moment. I mean, there's more and more of it available, but we can either use it to create babies of physical nature, or we can use it to create concepts and ideas and worlds of beauty. And we can use it all. One is not exclusive of the other. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Tell me about being together.
Yeah, you know, being together was born of something that I was learning about. And it was actually born of my soul desire, as you speak about the second chakra and creativity. I feel like my soul, myself as a being in this world, I thrive on creativity. So I feel like that's why we need to keep learning, or we need to keep, you know, cooking the next amazing meal, or painting the next painting, or writing the next writing, whatever it is. And I just needed some kind of like, I was a little at a plateau, and I knew something needed to happen. And then this opportunity, or this just arose. Okay, book. Here's a friend of mine had just written a book, and I thought, yeah, a book, great, let's write a book. So, you know, relationship is the final frontier, and it's really like begins with the relationship with yourself, with your heart, with your soul, and then how do we engage in a way that is building, in a way that is expansive, that is nourishing. And I looked around and I didn't see a lot of examples. I haven't. You know, I'm in my mid-50s, and where are all the happy couples? I mean, I looked, and then I thought, and well, yeah, there are some. And so I decided that I would interview them.
Oh.
You know, I interviewed couples that had been together 20 years or more. I did research for people who'd studied relationship in clinical settings for many years. And then I brought my own narrative in, my own narrative of this, especially of the relationship that I'm in presently, which is still a young relationship, just a little more than 2 years. And I just feel like it is relationship through the filter of my life experience, and my heart. And that's where the practical wisdom comes in, because it takes practice. And I mean, really, one thing in relationship is, as you brought in earlier with your brother, is acceptance. And acceptance is very kind. Yeah. If you're having any kind of issues in a relationship, internally or interpersonally, be kind, bring kindness. So that's one of the main things. And being kind actually is a discipline. Kindness is a discipline. I mean, some people are just naturally very kind, and others of us have to kind of file down the edges of the pointiness and the pickiness and the judgments and all of that. And so, yeah, so being together is an offering. It's an offering to support people in living in peaceful, harmonious, really deeply nourishing, supportive relationships that are ultimately evolutionary, that bring you, that raise you up and invite you to be your best self. And when the other selves that are younger and hurt and whatnot come forth, and they express maybe in unskillful ways, there's room for that. The space is held. That's not indulged, and the space is held. And there are skillful means to, you know, hey, that didn't land so well. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to rephrase, or I need a pause. You know, there are many, many practical tools, invitations, and the practice. And it's a practice. Relationship is a practice. And I would say, to your 45 years of meditation, I started meditating when I was, well, I guess now it'll be over 40 years ago, but I can't say I haven't missed a day, although I've been pretty consistent.
Well, you might be able to if you counted the 10 seconds that you would have, like I do sometimes, right?
That's right. The 10 seconds where I took like 2 deep breaths. All right, then I got a 40-year consecutive streak.
I'm very liberal in my practice.
Well, I think that's actually good, right?
Yeah,
because it's generous.
Yeah,
there's a generosity. So it's in being together. It involves being generous.
Totally.
Really being generous and expanding your bandwidth and kind of dropping your ideas of how it's supposed to be. Yeah. And then relating to who's here, and ultimately to come into to be together in such a way that you've got each other's backs, and you hold each other as hearts in a loving, kind, caring way. You know?
So in your practice that you do, is that what you do with people?
Is that what I do? Hold people's hearts with them?
Hold the space for people to hold each other's hearts, or hold their hearts?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love, I'm obviously very excited about the couple dynamic. And I really love working with couples. And then that is the invitation, is to stop the, you didn't, he didn't, she didn't, they didn't, whatever it is, and then just turn. I will often have people turn, pause, and just receive each other. And the listening, as I wonder how many times the word listening gets said or has been said today. Yeah. Because it's so important. And in a way, actually, just as I say that word, the word listening or listen then becomes the Dharma bell or the anchor for, listen. Yeah. Oh, okay, open up and listen. And I do this with my clients. I do this with my partner. I do this with my daughter. I just say, okay, let's pause. Let's pause and listen. And very often in conversations, people speak, but they don't listen. They just jump right in with their point, their perspective, their rebuttal, rather than, oh, so what I'm hearing you say, and you don't have to repeat it word for word, just giving them, oh, yes, I got that. I heard that. Yeah. And that's actually pretty much that's the prerequisite for being able to say anything about what you think, what you feel, is that, so that in the interplay with couples is tremendously important. Welcome
to the revolution. I'm starting a revolution of listening, but there you go.
All right.
Welcome to the revolution. One of the things I found in the room, and I'm sorry because I'm overstaying my welcome here and keeping you longer but I'm enjoying it. Do you have a few more minutes, or you need to
go? Do have a few more minutes. Okay, I have a few more.
Let's just keep it a few.
Okay.
One of the things that I've realized in the room that I go into is the thing that makes it possible for me to listen and hear is that when I walk in with no agenda.
Yes.
When I walk in with an agenda, I'm never able to listen and hear because I have somewhere I want it to go.
That's right.
And so I wonder if in the practice that you practice with the people who practice with you, there are not possible times where each partner could go agendaless into the conversation and just take the moment of that conversation, not necessarily to say what he or she thinks or feels, but just to allow your partner to speak to you.
Yeah.
And have no agenda, but just to listen and hear. And to really listen and hear.
Yes.
You've shared so much, and I want to thank you for not only your words, but your energy and the feeling that you've put into this room. And I thank you for that so much. We're going to have all your information in the show notes. But what would be the one way for people to get in touch with you if they wanted to get in touch with you, if they wanted to work with you, if they wanted to do whatever they want to do with you? Get your book, do all the things. Where's the place that they could go?
If you want to contact me, you can just go to my website, which is my name, padmagordon.com. and you can contact me through there. I would love to hear from anyone who has been listening to, especially to this meeting, to this sharing, because it's been so rich. And I would love to hear. And Daniel, you said, people are giving you these reflections, people you might not have even met. And I just want to say, as someone who receives reflections from people that I haven't met, who've maybe listened to my meditations or a podcast interview or something, it's so beautiful to hear from you. I love hearing from people. It's so nourishing and rewarding to know that our lives are touching, that our souls are dancing. So I welcome your communications. And my book, Being Together, is up on Amazon and also Barnes and Noble. So you can get it online there in various versions. And I am working on, in the spring, there'll be an audiobook. So look for that too.
Fabulous. I'm super excited because Mosaic just came. I just recorded it. It'll be out the first week of October in audio.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
I think it's a huge another place for people to show up with it.
Oh, absolutely.
Before we go, I know you shared a lot and you've given a ton. If you had 1 minute to speak to a world that wanted to hear your voice, what would you tell them?
Take time every day and close your eyes. Just take some deep breaths and let your awareness drop down and down. And take a few minutes and listen. Listen to the radiant aliveness of your own heart. Bring your curiosity. Surrender all agendas and be nourished. And practice this just for a few minutes every day. And then live your life from that place. One breath at a time.
I think I stand for everybody, or I sit for everybody, because I'm not standing. I think I sit for everybody in this room with me in saying thank you for sharing yourself with us today so openly, so honestly, so vulnerably. We love you, we accept you. And there could be nothing better for me than having people that have never heard of you before, never seen you before, but sort of like what the things that I'm doing, that you reach out and contact Padma. In whatever way that feels right. Get her book. Talk to her if you're going through some things with your relationship, to see how you might be able to work together with her. Talk to her if you just want to go practice a little bit better. I saw on her website she has tons of free meditations that are available. Just sit in her meditations with her. We are in the midst of a transition. And in the midst of this transition, it's time for those of us who feel connected to come together. That doesn't mean we believe the same things. I believe that we should come together with people of unlike mind as well as like mind. But it's that connection of people who feel this harmony together that Margaret Mead spoke about when she said that throughout all of time, it's always been a small group of people that have influenced the world and changed it. I don't know that the world needs to be changed, but I think it could use some influence.
Yes.
And why not? Again, I want to thank you. Is there one last thing you want to say before we close?
I just want to say thank you so much for having me. It's been really a deep pleasure to share time, share sacred space with you and with everyone listening. I'm so thankful. Yes.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. As I always say in everything that I do, if you like what you heard, it's human nature. Share what you like with people you like, because maybe they haven't had the opportunity to experience this yet. So if you've experienced it and you think friends of yours might like it, that you like, share it. It's free. Take it. We're here. Just take it. You don't have to ask. Just take it. Take it and share it with them. Give it to them. Help them. Offer it to them. And with no strings attached. If they like it, great. If they don't like it, great. But at least you've done your job. You've shared something you like with people you like. And that's what happens, how the world grows. How we grow in the way we want to grow, when we share what we like with people we like. So don't be strangers. Connect with each other. Connect with yourself. Connect to source. Connect to purpose. Connect to each other. That's the mosaic. God bless you all.
Blessings.